don't talk about politics? Okay, I'm actually interested. I gotta know.
Do you ever worry that the crap that you watch online is actively making you dumber? Like you're watching people debate political ideas and then you convince yourself that you're learning, but you know that in actuality your brain is starting to decompose, or at least it feels that way.
His answer.
I don't work for you, Soy Pill. I don't have to answer questions to your satisfaction.
Yeah, well, you also
I will
have a
answer
goldfish
I'm
memory,
sorry.
So 3 seconds after I ask my question, please answer
I'm
it.
gonna have to start meeting people.
Well, it turns out this might actually be true.
Okay, I'm interested. Take me on a ride, Michael.
Isolating effect of online communication is turning us into more reactive, paranoid, and frankly, dumb people. At least according to this book, Don't Talk About Politics, written by the political theorist Sarah Stein Lebrano. Now in this book, Lebrano argues that the culture of online political debate isn't doing anything to change minds or make the world a better place. And it's all being fueled by a loneliness epidemic that is very much happening on purpose, with a lack of infrastructure and community that's turning us all into weird little guys yelling at the computer all day. So on this month's edition of Burns After Reading, I'm going to talk about why we need to stop talking about politics if we actually want to become more politically effective. Unless this is your first time on the internet, you're well aware that one of the most popular forms of content is videos of people getting owned or destroyed or dog walked or annihilated in debate.
You don't want to be in permanent poverty in the United States, finish high school, get a job, don't have babies until you're married. Those 3 things, you won't be in permanent poverty in the United States.
And if this is your first time on the internet, immediately close your device, throw it in a river, and just
fucking leave. This is your first time on the internet, go away.
run. Just run. You'll thank me later, I promise. And this culture isn't confined to the computer. Charlie Kirk was killed in the middle of debating college students about some very, very important stuff. It was important work that he was doing when it was. I'm glad. Okay, I'm not saying anything else about this.
Should it
do it
be legal if a mom finds out she's having a girl?
Okay.
But she wants a boy. Should she be able to abort that 3-week-old?
Now, while Kirk has become a martyr of sorts, with his statue being built on at least one college campus that I know of, his legacy seems to have less to do with using debate to change minds and more to do with establishing debate as a permanent feature of online and increasingly in-person political culture. And of course, something that's really shaped the content ecosystem. And it's not just a right-wing issue, as we see this same form of content in left-leaning media as well. Now, it's here where Sarah Stein Lebrano's analysis picks up an important thread, as she clarifies one of the major myths that we've used to convince ourselves that debate is useful as an end in itself. She writes that the myth suggests that as long as the public is continuously exposed to ideas and can discuss them, politics will more or less function well. All you have to do is browse the available options and purchase the right one. It is a kind of consumerism. It is reasoning as commerce.
Fuck. That's why they use the fucking marketplace of ideas lingo. Sidebar, has anybody, you've all heard the marketplace of ideas lingo, right? Like every single one of you have heard that at some point? You've heard that? Okay, cool. So the marketplace of ideas lingo, the reason that is used is it's supposed to describe, basically what's being described here, the idea that we should have all ideas be available in the marketplace of ideas, and then only the good ones will be purchased by people. Like, it's literally, as the book is saying, it is consumerism as politics. But what the marketplace of ideas advocates don't seem to understand is that the job of marketing is to convince you to buy some fucking dumb shit you don't actually need. Yeah, you know what? Fair. I think the Thought Slime video you're talking about, Paige, is the one where Thought Slime pointed out that fascists just want to waste your time. The job of a fascist, like the job of a person in power who is trying to get you to debate whether or not fascism is good, their job is to waste your time, because if they waste your time arguing or consuming the content of debate, you're not actually spending that time doing anything useful. You're not actually spending that time undermining them or their worldview or the things that they are trying to advocate for. You're just engaging in exactly what they want. So yeah, I can agree with that, because I've seen that shit operate. I have.
In this marketplace of ideas, we are meant to believe that all ideas are equally worthy of debate and that the best and most rational ideas will rise to the top. Much like how the free market determines which products are most desirable based on consumer demand, the marketplace of ideas implies that we're both able to identify the best ideas available and then change our minds accordingly. But as Librano explains, often what's happening is that we are seeking out ideas that confirm our pre-existing worldviews. And it's very uncommon that public political debates are actually going to change our minds. If you've ever had your mind changed by a debate, I would genuinely like to hear about it, so please let me know in the comments.
I'd say it's less that my mind has been changed by a debate, and more that my opinion has shifted, or I felt like I got better reasonings for certain opinions by listening to debate. But at that point, wouldn't that just mean the debate was confirmation bias? Because, like, I could point to the Ken Ham Bill Nye debate where by the time I watched that debate, I was already an atheist. And the debate definitely gave me more reasons to be an atheist, but it didn't change me from what I was. It just gave me reasons that confirmed my biases. Now, granted, I'm still an atheist. That part hasn't changed. But I do think that that is an interesting point, and it's a cogent one. It is a cogent point.
Now, we all know that the anger and outrage created by debate culture is so lucrative because it doesn't just perpetuate ideology, it makes people money. Because the more we're online complaining and commenting and watching people yelling, the more of our data is getting out there, helping all types of weirdos monetize our attention. And the worst of these weirdos are the ones buying and selling our data to track us, sell us crap. That's pretty cool that they did that. Even more troubling, the culture of debate and the marketplace of ideas makes it really easy for batshit insane ideas to present themselves as worthy of serious consideration.
I think you could say I'm a fascist.
Yeah, I am.
Librano writes, debate can not only make two unequal sides appear equal, but they can also make the center, or whatever position lies between these artificial poles, appear to be common sense and the obvious solution even when it isn't. So debates between right-wing authoritarianism and socialism inherently posit that the liberal free market system is a sort of natural middle ground between the two.
The work of politics, of bridging over a lot of profound, fundamental, moral disagreements, I think became somewhat diminished. It began to seem like, in many cases, a betrayal to people. The tent shrunk.
You know, in this Jubilee episode, watched by 32 million people, scientists and flat earthers attempt to find a sort of middle ground between the consensus of scientific research and unscientific conspiracy theory.
Once you start to really take a hard look at the evidence, and you are unafraid of just standing for the truth wherever that may lead you, then...
That, by the way, that is language that is almost always used by fucking conspiracy theorists. I haven't seen that Jubilee video, and I haven't seen this video by Michael Burns. But I'm going to take the prediction that that's a flat earther. Nipple Crusher, thank you for the follow. Also, Yoru Vexa in the chat. Hello. How are you doing? I thought the job of marketing was to return to Monkey. Well, Monkey go ooh, ooh, ah, ah, $1, I guess? I guess it still does. It's return money, though, not Monkey.
People end up becoming flat earthers.
Ah, yep, there we are. I fucking called it. Every time that language is used, it's some dumb fucking manipulative idiot that doesn't actually have a good leg to stand on and tries to do this whole, actually, I followed where the evidence leads and it led me to the fucking Arctic wall.
When everything is worth debating, then every idea becomes worthy of being taken seriously. Sort of like if you stopped to get a drink at the grocery store, and then the Gatorade you wanted shared a cooler with bottles of horse piss, because simply by being on offer, on sale at the same place that the Gatorade is on sale, that bottle of horse piss is somehow legitimized. Also, don't drink horse piss. Right after I wrote that line, I Googled drinking horse urine and health or something like that to see if it's actually a thing. And my friends, let me tell you, it is, because that's the world that we get to live in.
Is a product called Primarin. And the name Primarin is a shortened form of the phrase pregnant mare urine.
But this critique isn't just aimed at the various horse-piss salesmen of the online political space. It also applies to earnest leftist attempts to change the world via the explanation of ideas. Lebrano writes that many left-leaning people feel discouraged hearing about all this because they harbor the hope, sometimes only half-consciously, that if they just explain oppression clearly enough, people will be motivated to overthrow it. And as a former academic and current whatever all this is, this shit hits me really hard because I've spent so much of my adult life trying to critically explain systems of power and oppression in the hopes that this would lead to some type of material change. You know, the idea that if we just understood the world a certain way, we would all wake up and make the world different.
I mean, that's kind of the idea that we all get as kids, right? We're like, if everybody had the exact same access to information as we did, then suddenly the world would be better. Like if we just had that special knowledge, which by the way, that's the kind of thing that you tend to have. That's the kind of thinking you tend to have when you're a conspiracy theorist, by the way. It's the idea that everybody would act the same way towards like the Bilderberg group as you do if they had the same special knowledge that you did. When realistically, there are people who have access to that exact same knowledge, evaluated it, and said, wow, you're a fucking psychedelic wackadoo. Nipple Crusher, hello, and the topic right now is, I saw a cool Michael Burns video, and I like Michael Burns, and it was about a topic that I feel very passionately about, so I wanted to actually take a listen.
I'm confident that at least 20% of you just thought of Marx's 11th thesis on Feuerbach, where he writes that the philosophers have only interpreted the world in various ways. The point is to change it. If you're one of those 20%, let me know. Now, Lebrano points out how the culture of internet debate and discussion has been so
Sidebar, if you're one of those people who did not think about that, so that other 80%, let me know in the comment section below right now. Let me know that you don't read theory, because I'm with you. That shit's boring as hell. I understand how necessary it is to understand a lot of it, but some of those people were not eloquent writers.
So skilled at not only tricking us into thinking that our constant talking about ideas equates to some sort of action, but also that in monetizing this process, it keeps us consuming and creating content while the world burns. You know, it's almost like all of this is on purpose. Okay, let me pivot for just 1 second to talk about another 19th century thinker who can help us think through this current cultural disaster, none other than my guy, Soren Kierkegaard. Now, he critiqued 19th century culture for its emphasis on reflection, thinking about the world, which he thought distracted people from decision and action, actually doing things in the world. It's a similar energy to Marx's 11th thesis on Feuerbach, too much philosophy leads to not enough social and political action.
Yeah, that's an issue that I ran into back when I was like heavily into the philosopher shit, where I would spend so much time just thinking about shit that I wasn't actually doing shit. And I would spend that time because it allowed me to be like a super cool devil's advocate about things, instead of actually taking that time to do some research and go, oh, the studies say this, I guess I was wrong. There's a reason why if you look at some of my earliest content, you'll notice that even though I have sourcing, a lot of time the sources that I choose to use are going to be a little more philosophical in nature, where I'll be like, yeah, no, this is why I believe that divine command theory is ethical subjectivism or some shit. Whereas the current content that I make now, when you see sources, when it's the edited content, usually it's like 5 fucking studies or some shit. Now, it's not to say that I didn't use studies back then too. I did, especially for the Dangers of Wu series. But the type of content that I consumed was a lot more philosophy focused, because that was the part that interested me more than being correct. Philosophy is interesting because you can argue ad nauseum without ever being right or being wrong.
And Kierkegaard thought that this problem was exacerbated by the popular media of his day, namely newspapers and gossip magazines, which created more opportunity than ever to consume information about what was happening in the world, leading to a feeling that reading about the revolutionary actions of others was somehow a radical act in itself. I've been there. I've been guilty of that. I've watched like a documentary on revolutionary stuff and thought, yeah, we're doing it. We're doing it by watching a movie. It's on a streaming platform. It's owned by a billionaire who's a fascist. The point here wasn't to draw a line between thought and action, but to emphasize in a similar vein to Marx that reflecting on the world is useful in as much as it leads to decision and action within the world. The problem
There's actually, I'm gonna do the philosopher thing real quick, because I actually do know one of the philosophy experiments for this one. Or it's not even an experiment, it's just a fun or thought experiment. It's a fun thought experiment. And it's the skeptic's ass, or it's somebody's ass. I don't remember. It's a conversation about asses. But the idea is that you have a donkey, right? The skeptic's ass, if you would, the skeptical donkey. And the donkey is sitting between two identical stacks of feed. Both feeds look equally nutritious, equally delicious, and will equally sate its hunger. There is no difference between the two that we can ascertain. But there might be a difference. You don't know yet. So the skeptical ass, knowing that there might be a difference and there might be a correct option that will give them the better experience, sits there and thinks and thinks and thinks and ponders and ponders and ponders over which one to eat, and ultimately starves to fucking death. Because simply going and living that experience, which would have been way faster, way more efficient, and would have led to a better outcome, simply doing that is not what the eternal skeptic does. The eternal skeptic thinks and ponders and tries to figure out what the best one should be, as opposed to recognizing that, hey, for all pragmatic purposes, irrespective of whether or not there's a best one, survival determines that I make a choice, even if it is the incorrect one. Sometimes you'll find people who are the skeptic's ass, also called people with autism. And I'm not saying that as a dig. I'm saying that because my more autistic friends happen to be the ones that sit there and ponder and ponder and ponder and think and think and think about whether or not a decision is the correct one, whether or not a decision is the one they should be making. And then they just never fucking do anything, and they wonder why they're stagnating in their life. And it's a frustrating thing to see as a grown adult. Axo says, okay, ow. Yeah, if you feel called out, you were. Every one of you. Each and every one of you. That was deliberate. That was your deliberate message that you should go and do something, gain a new experience. Ultimately, I want you to be happy and functional. And being happy and functional means not stagnating. If the only thing you are engaged in doing is rotting, then you should be doing something else. Axo says, it's called tism anxiety. I'm working on it. I don't want the cans that aren't alive to be jealous that I picked a different can. Yeah, I understand it's anxiety. As somebody who got diagnosed with it, was on Klonopin for it, and literally could not function out in, like, social society for a straight year of my life because of it, I understand. And I am simply telling you, as a person who has gone to therapy for this exact thing, go out and do something. It can be anything. Go get a pizza. Go meet a new friend. Go to a rollerblade rink. Go play Magic the fucking Gathering. Literally anything. I am begging you.
Is that when reflection becomes an end in itself, especially when it comes to politics. And I think that this Kierkegaardian context can help us better understand the stakes when Lebrano writes that we need to stop thinking that talking about politics is the same thing as truly engaging in it. Because all the evidence suggests that simply presenting one another with ideas changes very little. Instead, doing politics means taking new actions and building relationships. Put simply, if we want to change minds, we need to do stuff, ideally with other people and definitely away from the computer. But this is hard to do when the internet is making us increasingly addicted to platforms that are at the same time making us more isolated and less likely to engage with others in an open and collaborative way. Lebrano writes about the phenomenon of social atrophy, which describes the weakening through disuse of the neural networks that help us navigate the social world. She references studies that show how isolation leads to a loss of cognitive function in humans, making us worse at emotional regulation, reasoning, and memory. Basically, our brain is well prepared to relate to other people, and when we do, our brain gets exercised by utilizing its full operational complexity. But when we live alienated lives, devoid of community and social interaction, our brain quite literally atrophies. It's like the brain is a muscle, and we have not hit the gym in quite some time. The consequences of all of this are scary. Lebrano notes that reduced social contact literally decreases the volume in key areas of our brain. Now, one effect of this is that lonely individuals are more anxious, angry, and negative and less positive, optimistic, comfortable, and secure than socially embedded individuals.
If you feel called out, it is because you are. Anyway, continuing.
Or to put it in the terms that make sense to those of us who had to stop taking science classes in high school, being chronically isolated causes a certain kind of, well, brain damage. Lebrano points out not just how estrangement from others leads to changes in personality, but also how socially isolated individuals underestimate the opportunities available for them to connect with others and fail to see what they should be doing to build and maintain relationships. Moreover, social isolation appears to make people more emotionally volatile and easily upset, especially in social situations. And this makes sense of why so many young men who are caught up in online debate culture sometimes act like absolute nutbags. And Lebrano notes this is also a class issue, as isolation and alienation strike the poor worst of all. Being broke makes you more isolated and lonely. Loneliness screws with your brain and your sense of self, and all of this sets you up to get caught up in the culture of intellectual war that dominates so much political media. One of the most toxic outcomes of all of this is that it creates a type.
Anselin says, dude, have you met people? I have. Or are you talking about him? But like, regardless, the idea is you should still go out and meet people. Yeah, people can suck, but people can also be great. Check this out. When I go outside, there is a lot of people who are right-wing douchebags, right-wing nut jobs, just assholes in general. There are people who I meet when I go outside who are left-wing douchebags and nut jobs, who are tankies and think that it's okay to plunge our fucking country into chaos so they can get their ideal political system, regardless of whether or not that means that my family fucking dies on the end of their spear. I understand those people exist and they do suck, and dealing with them is an absolute nightmare. You know what I've also done when I've gone outside? You know what's also been just a great experience when I've gone out? I've met friends. I met one friend who gave me a toolbox. To hold my Magic the Gathering cards when I was first getting back into Magic. That friend is Biminim, and he's been a steadfast friend ever since that fucking toolbox trade. You know what else I did? I met another friend. You guys have heard their name is Fleur, also Walker. I mean, that's been on their thing. The friend whose house burned down. You know how I met them? I was playing Yu-Gi-Oh! In a tournament, and I learned how to 3D print playmats with sublimation. And I, through that meeting, found a friend that I have kept for damn near more than a third of my life, approaching half of it. I have found other friends merely by mentioning foods that I was cooking. And then those friends ended up coming over to my house for fucking Thanksgiving to have my cooking in person. I have met so many fucking wonderful people simply by taking my ass and going outside and being around people. Sometimes it was literally just having a conversation adjacent to that person that led to that friendship blossoming. It's not an uncommon thing. All you have to do is go outside and be yourself. I have also worked in the customer service industry. I recognize there were some comments about that and how jaded you can get working in customer service. I get it. I've been a manager at Quick Trip. I've been a manager at McDonald's. I have been deli work and customer service over at Publix. I have done a lot of those jobs. I've been call center. I've done call center work. I've worked at Walmart. I've worked at Kroger. I've worked at a lot of these places, and I have met a lot of the worst, most miserable assholes who get a power trip off of telling retail people that they can fucking shove it, but not in so many words because they know how to make sure they push my buttons without actually getting themselves in trouble and escorted out of the store. Yeah, those people exist. They do not negate the good people. Even in a world where there are more bad people than good, they do not negate the existence of those good people. Go out, meet people, have friends. If that means you never click on another video of mine again, fucking good. I would rather you as a viewer be happy than to have you as a viewer. If viewing content on the internet and being stuck on here, listening to streamers, listening to shorts, and doom scrolling is preventing you from going out and meeting people and having fun, then I would rather you not do those things, even if it means that I get less money as a result. Anyway, back to the video.
Of aggressive person who is always wearing conflict-colored glasses. This means that they see aggression and then create conflict where there isn't any. Their societal alienation leads to alienating others in a super unchill and self-perpetuating cycle. Lebrano writes that we need to stop framing problems and letting governments and institutions frame problems as loneliness, since what is really at stake is a collective problem about estrangement and alienation, not an individual problem or feeling. We've created the structural conditions for large groups groups of lonely and alienated people to fall into the belief that participating in debate culture is doing something politically urgent and even meaningful. At the same time, these conditions incentivize a type of professional debate guy culture, where individuals capitalize on this loneliness and anger to build their own brands and create armies of digital sycophants, many of whom use literal war metaphors to describe what they're doing when they're just cyberbullying people.
The culture war, cyberbullying is the culture war. I am engaging in the culture war by cyberbullying some strange person on the internet. I am engaging in the culture war by being angry that Blizzard has not actually allowed me to log into World of Warcraft for not 1 but 2 days. That one has nothing to do with anything, but that's just a personal frustration.
So what we need in response to this is not only to reclaim and rebuild social infrastructure, something that Librano talks about at length in the book.
I know there are some who view this administration with distrust or disdain, or who see politics as permanently broken. And while only action can change minds, I promise you this: if you are a New Yorker, I am your mayor.
Not just to stop thinking and start doing things, but to do all of this collectively and with a spirit of friendship. And this spirit of friendship is a crucial corrective to the combative political culture that encourages us to constantly be seeking out new enemies. And while Librano does recommend joining protest movements as a corrective to our culture of digital debate and reflection, it's not because these actions have a direct political effect. They very often don't, but because they can both change minds and develop a spirit of community and political friendship. She writes that, interestingly, those who become members of protest movements compared with control groups of similar people who don't seem to have greater self-esteem and well-being. So if dogpiling on your least favorite digital political pundit leaves you feeling more angry and alone, well, going to a protest or joining a political movement makes you happy, and happy people don't shoot their husbands. More importantly, in engaging with social and political movements of all sizes and scales, whether it is protesting against the increasingly psychotic military actions of your country or organizing tenants in your apartment building, we're not just doing stuff, we're putting thought into action and often learning as we go. Librano writes that
don't think about thinking, think about doing, and then go do.
One of the reasons why action is so central to political thinking is that it is only in trying to change the world that we discovered how it works. This touches back on the critiques of Marx and Kierkegaard that I already talked about. These guys, in different ways, both emphasized that our thought needs to be oriented towards action, and that our action needs to then facilitate further thinking, which then leads to more effective action, which leads back to more thought, and on and on and on and on and on, until we win. For Librano, to think effectively about politics, then, is not only to think about action, it is also by necessity to take action. Good political reasoning cannot happen simply by reading and debating, because there are some things we can only learn through our attempts to change the world. Certain kinds of knowledge are better achieved through action than reflection. Action shapes who we are.
Honestly, there's some basic shit in life that actually applies to. I have a friend who's been a good friend of mine for years, and I have noted frustrations with this friend. I'm not going to name them because it's not necessary to. Hell, if I feel the need to send this video to them and say, hey bro, this is about you, then I fucking will. But there's an active agreement I've had with this friend of mine for a while. They used to be a YouTuber with some pretty viral videos. And then they quit. They quit because they got scared of the attention they were getting. And you know what? I understand. It makes sense. One of my biggest points of disagreement with this friend for years has been him saying, hey, I've been thinking about being a YouTuber again. And then him not doing that. There's only so many times over the course of 3, 4, 5 years you can hear the words, I think I'm just about ready to get back in the game. I think I've got everything figured out. I'm ready to do it. There's only so many times you can hear those exact fucking words before you just go, no, you're not. No, you're not. You're thinking about thinking. You are thinking as if thinking is an end unto itself. You are thinking as a replacement for doing. You will learn more about doing this job by just doing it than you will learn by watching 12 billion tutorial videos about it. I'm sorry. Also, speaking of sorry, I just have to put a real cam real quick. That cat over there is loud as fuck. Cutie pie. Hi. Hi, do you wish to continue being loud as fuck? Yeah? Come on. No? You just wish to sit there and meow. That cat just meows. Just meows. All day. All they do. Fantastic. 10 out of 10 animal. Will Chart says, having conversations about having conversations. The person who has a meeting about having meetings. When you stare at the abyss might meow back.
The communities and movements that we participate in shape our political subjectivity. And if you don't actively form your own subjectivity via the means of concerted and collective action, well, there's a host of reactive apps and digital communities that would gladly passively form your subjectivity for you. Not making a decision is, in this case, still making a decision. Okay, so there's a lot more than that going on in this book. I really, really do recommend checking this one out for yourself. It's both accessible to those without a heavy background in theory, while being plenty engaging for the sicko theory heads among us. Now, I always recommend starting with your local library, but if you're a real sicko like me and need to write notes all over your book, consider using the affiliate link below to grab a copy from bookshop.org. In doing so, you're going to be supporting independent bookstores and not Jeff Bezos. Okay, I want to quick.
What video is this, by the way? This is Don't Talk About Politics from Michael Burns' channel.
Quickly conclude with a couple of Lebrano's recommendations from the final sections of the book. Now, the first is a call for those of us involved in the creation of political media. You know, whether that be YouTube videos, TikTok explainers, video game streams where you also talk about theory and politics. She writes that we should try to create media that helps people with the difficulty of reasoning so that they are able to think through the gray areas rather than rushing to find a way out of the discomfort. Our highly conflict-driven formats for discussion, from radio shows to Twitter algorithms, disengage those who don't like conflict and trap those who can just about stand it in cycles of thinking about it more or less as war. Now, we know that conflicts and negative emotions lead to increased clicks and engagement, so we need to challenge ourselves to avoid that temptation in both our creation and consumption of digital media. And don't get me wrong, like every time I put out a video, I get stressed trying to make titles and thumbnails that you guys will click without being too clickbaity, because then you get mad at that as well. You know, and it's always hard to not use our social media as a platform simply for dunking on our ideological enemies or making jokes about bad guys, which again, I like doing and is fun and once got me banned from Twitter. Lebrano concludes her book with a general call for all of us who believe that ideas are important and who think that good ideas can even change the world. She writes, there are at least two ways to love ideas: to talk about them and to live them in the world. My fellow lovers of ideas, the beauty of re-understanding politics in the way I suggest here is that it is still possible to believe in ideas. Ideas do matter, but they matter through our actions and relationships. And that is a hopeful thing. So let us try to go out and live out our ideas in a relationship with other people. And let's try to build a world where it's easier for everyone to do this, because that's what it means to truly think about politics. Thank you so much to Sarah Stein Lebrano for writing this book. Thank you to my patrons for making.
And thank you, Michael Burns, for making this video that was really chill to watch. And you know what? I think this is perfectly good to go on the main channel, because you know what? I don't have too many criticisms of there. I just have bits of context that I can add, as I did there. That's about what I've got. Yeah, reading theory is cool. Going out and actually doing shit is also really fucking cool. There's a person who I am very proud of, who is an individual that I had to set up a small rescue operation for years ago. Well, this individual went to go start working at like soup kitchens and all kinds of shit afterwards, and getting involved politically, locally in their area. And that shit's fucking rad. Hearing stories like that, it warms my goddamn heart. And I want to see more of that going forward from people. So yeah, Michael, chill ass guy. I would love to have a conversation with Michael, honestly. I think his channel is wonderful and y'all should go check him out. Consider this a shout out, but I'm the smaller channel, so like, maybe this is actually parasitic, but that's okay, right? Probably. I don't know, K-Fox. You tell me if this is okay. Insert a video tagline here. Probably. Hey, you made it to the end. I want to give an extra thanks to the patrons who allow me to do this full time. I want to thank Aaron Rail, Astral, Britzkrieg, Jemshin, Poundini, Red Joker, Victoria, Jonas, Craig, Tarika, Fireshard, Smiling GM, John, Dren Hadamada, Creeper, Sagitt, you know I'm not saying that last part, Valis of Seraph, Ottoman Angel, Rooster Rachel, and Fire Panda, who are all my $20 and up patrons.